guys.
Hi, and welcome to another family reaction video. Today we're going to be checking out something that probably ties in with our little trip that we're going to do in a couple of months.
Or maybe ties in with our lives.
Yeah, so
Ooh.
Future plans maybe?
Maybe.
So in order to gain some information, we're going to check out the top 10 states everyone is moving to in 2023. So I don't know, I've got the front picture, I don't know what that might be, like Nevada or like Grand Canyon or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's
Arizona.
Arizona.
Maybe, could be.
Who knows?
But I don't know, have you guys got some guesses about what states you think would be on
I
there?
do.
What?
Texas.
Oh, Texas.
Oh,
I think Utah.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Texas is going to come out on top.
Oh, I think California.
Oh, you think California?
I think
California.
maybe New York.
New York.
Okay.
All right, let's see. These guys went with the big cities.
Okay.
We went more with the...
Mum chose a big place.
what did you say?
A big
Texas,
state.
yeah, but
Texas
I mean...
is the biggest state in America. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
I know.
other than Ontario.
But it's not the biggest population. Yeah.
It will be soon.
Let's check it
Because
out.
everyone's moving there.
Are you looking for
Nice
a
drone
place to
shot.
plant new roots? Or maybe this is the year
Maybe.
you finally decide to uproot yourself and move to a new state. Either way, you'd be in the minority, as most Americans actually want to stay put. Yeah, while the pandemic inspired a mass exodus from big cities to smaller cities and towns in 2020, things really slowed down in 2021 with the least amount of people changing residences in nearly 75 years.
Wow.
But who cares
Whoa.
about that? Because it's 2022 now, which means new year,
COVID's
new
over.
move. And if you're like this cow who wants to move but has no idea where to start, well, there's got to be a reason everyone's moving to the states on this list. So let's move on to the 10 states that everyone is moving to in 2022. And let's hit 5,000 likes if you want to see a video on the states that Americans are leaving in 2022.
Whoa.
Number 10, Rhode Island. Rhode Island may be the smallest state by total area, but most of that land must
Wow.
be pretty desirable,
Same population
as
as
it also
Auckland.
has the second highest population
That looks
density.
beautiful.
Now this
It does
one
look
literally
Whoa.
came out of nowhere, as people have been fleeing the ocean state for years, and most of the states that people moved to in 2021 were among the least densely populated. But with beautiful beaches, no
Wow.
crime, and tons of charming historic towns, Rhode Island's pretty underrated. Especially since the economy
Man, that's
is
cool.
booming. The median household income grew by 8.7% just this past year to
Wow.
$71,200. So it makes sense that 36% of newcomers moved here for a job. And over half of newcomers are also making more than 150 grand a year. So while the median home value of 398
Going up.
grand isn't exactly cheap, it's likely not an issue for them. Plus, it's still a heck of a lot cheaper than neighboring Massachusetts, where the vast majority of new residents moved from. But even though 59.1% of total moves here in 2021 were inbound migration, the population of nearly 1.1 million actually decreased by 0.2% due to natural decrease, aka when the total number of deaths is greater than the amount of new births. Number 9. Idaho. What?
Ooh.
But you keep telling us Idaho's the fastest growing state. How come it's only number 9? Well, you see, it is the fastest growing state with an estimated population increase of 3.4% just this past year. But since most of the people moving in are coming from states with much higher incomes like California and Washington, the cost of living has also skyrocketed to the point where it's just no longer affordable for locals. Now, sure, the economy is
we know what
growing
that feels
fast
like.
too, with 7.8% wage growth last year. But it's not growing near fast enough, as the median household income is still only 61 grand, while the median home cost ballooned by 34% over the past 12 months to
We know about that.
452 grand. So while the sheer amount of new residents might make you think Idaho would be higher on the list, just 60.4% of total moves in the gem state last year were inbound migration, as many locals were also forced to leave. But can you really blame people who can afford it for wanting to live here? Boise's pretty much the definition of a perfect city. There is so much beautiful untouched nature, and it's the third safest state. Number 8,
Nice.
Oregon. Idaho's
Ooh,
coastal neighbor
nice.
just barely eked out a higher spot on this list, with
Hate that rock.
60.5% of total moves in the state being inbound migration. But
Is that
while
the Goonies
almost
rock?
no one moved to Idaho for jobs, 44% of new Oregon residents said their primary reason for moving was for a job, which is understandable considering the thriving economy in the Silicon Forest, aka the Portland, Beaverton, Hillsborough area, where the median household income is a whopping $78,500. And while the media likes to paint the place as if it's an Antifa war zone, if you avoid downtown, Portland is still as artsy as ever, with so much character and literally the best food and beer in the country. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if people moved there
That's cool.
solely for the food. It's
All the
that
bridges.
good. And no matter where in Oregon you move
Wow.
to, you'll be surrounded by stunning scenery. From the Rogue River Valley to the volcanoes in Crater Lake to the painted hills, magically rugged
everything.
coastline, and so many waterfalls.
Whoa.
The Beaver State is one of the most geographically diverse. Sure, it's also gotten expensive with a median home cost of $486,000. But compared to California or Washington, where over half of the newcomers are moving from, it's actually pretty affordable.
I think there's also zero
Number 7,
sales tax.
Tennessee.
Wow.
With a violent crime rate 506% above the national average, Memphis just surpassed St. Louis for the title of most dangerous city in America. And Tennessee overall is the third most dangerous state. Heck, even Nashville, the one actual good place to live here with a great economy, has a violent crime rate 200% above the national average.
Wow.
But that hasn't stopped
Sheesh.
people from moving here in droves, as 62% of total moves in the state last year were inbound ones, resulting in an overall population growth of 0.9%. Then again, considering that nearly 40% of newcomers said they moved here for the lifestyle or to retire, maybe they're all just adrenaline junkies who love the feeling of danger, because the state is also smack dab in the middle of the new Tornado Alley. Or maybe they just like the Great Smoky Mountains. Yeah, that one probably makes more sense, since most of the people moving here are coming from Florida or Texas, which are both pretty flat.
That
And while the
view.
median home cost of $264,000 may seem somewhat affordable compared to most of the country, it's also going up fast, while the median household income is still just $56,000 with very little economic opportunity outside of Nashville. But hey, at least there's no state income tax. Number 6, Alabama. Alabama
wow.
consistently makes our worst states to live in lists.
Down south.
So why in the world is it the 6th most moved to state? Well, considering that 45.4% of people who moved here said they did so for a job, the answer is Huntsville. That's right, the one city in Alabama that doesn't suck is actually a pretty great place to live with a diversified economy and a median household income of $67,000. Which might be just slightly above the US average of $65,000, but compared to the statewide median household income of just $51,000, it's incredible. And considering that many of the states people are moving here from are even more impoverished, like Louisiana or Mississippi, for them, even the rest of Alabama probably doesn't seem that bad. But if you're not from Louisiana or Mississippi, don't be fooled by the cheap cost of living, because it's not worth the years that living here will take off your life. Alabama actually has the second
now?
lowest life expectancy at just 74.9 years, which
Wow.
makes sense as it also has the third highest obesity rate and fourth worst healthcare outcomes. So even though 62.1% of total moves in the state last year were inbound migration, the overall population growth was just 0.3% due to natural decrease. Number 5. Florida. Considering how many people are moving to Florida, it may very well be the next Texas.
Wow.
Resort town.
62.3% of total moves in the state last year were inbound migration, resulting in a population growth of 1.1%, despite it already being the third largest state with nearly 22 million residents. But while most
out.
newcomers to Texas moved for the affordable cost of living and booming economies of the cities, people of all ages and walks of life are moving to the Sunshine State for all sorts of reasons. One of which may be that despite the ongoing pandemic, Florida has remained open with life largely unchanged throughout 2021. Now this could be a pro or con depending on your views, but either way, 27% of newcomers said they moved here for the lifestyle, while 39% said they moved here to retire. And who wouldn't want to live out their best years with
Wow.
year-round warm
Little
weather,
palm
great
trees.
multicultural cities, and nearly 1,000 miles of pristine white sand beaches?
Amazing.
Especially since the majority of new residents are coming from New York, where the cost of living is much higher, the winters are much colder, and the restrictions are much more strict. Number 4. West Virginia. Wait,
Wow.
isn't West Virginia the fastest shrinking state? How the heck did it make this list? Okay, so yeah, West Virginia had been the fastest shrinking state for most of the past decade. But a huge part of that was due to natural decrease. What can I say? West Virginians just aren't having kids, and the increasingly aging population is, well, increasingly aging, while also not living very long, with the average life expectancy under 75 years. And sure, people had also been fleeing the state due to high poverty and literally no economic opportunity. But that's also made it dirt cheap, with by far the lowest median home values in the nation at just $122 grand.
Like
So since the nature here is still as gorgeous as ever, many outdoors lovers who can work remotely have finally started moving in. Especially since other mountain states like Colorado, Utah, or New Hampshire have gotten ridiculously expensive. So while West Virginia was still the 7th fastest shrinking state in 2021 with a net population loss of 0.6%, 63% of statewide moves were actually inbound ones. And I wouldn't be surprised if that trend continues throughout the next decade as more and more people discover the place. In fact, Lonely Planet just ranked West Virginia as its number 2 travel destination in the world for 2022.
Best lightning conductor, that's gold.
Number 3. South Carolina. South Carolina is exploding. Well, not literally, but last year it had the 3rd highest percentage of inbound migration at 63.3% of total moves, and it was the 4th fastest growing state overall with a net population gain of 1.4%. Just because a lot of people are moving somewhere, however, does not necessarily make it a great place to live, as the quality of life as a whole here just isn't very good outside of Hilton Head or Charleston. Which, to be fair, is a great small city. Both of those places have gotten really expensive, though, and while the Greenville and Columbia areas are also decent enough, there's a huge division of wealth between the cities, which are open to change, and the rural parts of the state, which are severely impoverished. As such, South Carolina is actually among the bottom 10 states in most categories that matter, including having the 9th highest poverty rate, 7th worst schools, and 5th highest crime rate. But if you don't need a job, can't afford Florida, and are just looking to join the 36.6% of newcomers who moved here to retire, Myrtle Beach is one of the most affordable beach towns in the country. Number 2, South Dakota. If you've never been to South Dakota, you're probably wondering why so many people are moving to a seemingly uneventful state in the middle of nowhere, with 68.6% of total moves here being inbound migration. But if you have ever visited the home of the Black Hills and Badlands, you can probably see why. Sure, it's rarely talked about, but objectively, the Mount Rushmore state is a great place to live. Sioux Falls is one of the best small cities with great affordability and a booming economy. So it makes sense that 32.6% of newcomers moved here for a job. And considering that the state is the 5th least densely populated with so much breathtaking nature, in addition to also being pretty darn cheap with no state income tax and a median home value of just $264 grand, it's no surprise that 46% of new residents said their primary reason for moving here was for the lifestyle, to retire, or for a lower cost of living.
Awesome.
Now, before we get to number 1, make sure you leave a like and subscribe and comment which state you would want to move to the most, even if it's not on this list. But without further ado, number 1, Vermont. Despite Vermonters'
none of us
a secret, the Green Mountain State has been the most moved to state for 5 years running, with an astounding 74.3% of total moves in 2021 being inbound migration. But what can I say? Once people move here and experience the incredibly high quality of life, they don't leave. And I don't blame them. The scenery is immaculate, there are so many wonderful small towns, and Burlington has an incredible economy. But if you watched my top 10 reasons why everyone is moving to Vermont video, you already knew that. And if you haven't watched it, then go watch it, because who knows, maybe you're gonna want to join all the newcomers who will likely yet again make Vermont the most moved to state of 2022.
Do you think we will?
Oh,
Do you
should we
think,
move to Vermont?
Yeah, is that us, guys?
Is that us? We'd have to say goodbye to our dog.
No, we wouldn't.
And he's obsessed with us.
Kyla wants to be an American citizen.
Vermont.
You love all the American treats, eh? Hey, buddy.
I love it so much.
I never would have picked that. I thought everyone was moving
No.
to Texas. I actually thought everyone was moving to Tennessee as well, because I've seen a few people move there.
Oh, yeah. Kai.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, that was a really interesting video. I was not expecting. In fact, I think most of the ones that we said were probably mentioned as states that people were moving out of.
I know.
Like I heard them say moving out of New York, California. Yeah.
One of those states might be somewhere we're going to go on our trip.
One of the states mentioned.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
To be fair, I like watching it to see all the scenery.
Yeah, me
just
too.
driving through the cities, that's not
Yeah.
what we get to see very often, eh? You just get
Yeah.
to see like main things about America, but just driving through all of those
Yeah.
small towns and stuff.
I think the real character of America is in the small towns.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's cool when you see the big grand skylines like
Yeah.
Manhattan and all
I feel
that
like
sort of
that's
stuff.
commercial America.
Yeah.
And then you get into like real America is like the small towns.
Yeah.
You know, all the local hotspots, stuff like that.
I love watching, when we watch these videos, I see some of the states that we're going to go to, and I love seeing like what's going to be there, and I get like super excited.
So excited.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed that one, make sure you smash the like button. Also, let us know if you guys live in any of these states, or if you ever have, or if you're planning to move to any of these states.
Or if you've moved recently in the last year or two, because we're in 2023.
And where
now,
did
so-
you move?
Yeah.
And why did you move?
Yeah.
And what's your credit card details?
What?
What's
What's
your
your-
IP address?
Yeah, what's your address?
But also, how do people just move states? Because, you know, there's so much involved.
Yeah, it's a big thing. I mean, we basically moved states.
Yeah, we did. Well, 4 hours away from our family, but it feels like,
Yeah,
you know, moving states.
yeah, definitely.
It's quite an ordeal.
Yeah. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and hit the post notification bell. And for all the stuff, all the info that you might need, like merch, GoFundMe, Patreon, Instagram, all that sort of stuff is down in the description box below. And we love you guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye!